All right. Good evening. How's everyone doing? Whew. Getting here started in a sec. Getting things going. Pretty cool show at least tonight. All set. It's pretty, I want to say, not shoddy, but it's going to be funny. Most of my aesthetics are going to be inspired by Cards Against Humanity. And, you'll get what that means in a second. But yeah, let me see something first. Is there crackling going on? A lot going on right now. Does it sound crackly to all of you? Or no? A lot of drop frames. Let me not do that. Like a million drop frames? Okay. So let me see what's wrong. Because everything was just fine a second ago. Nope. It's a slideshow? Alright, well not much different from what we got going later. We're seconds per frame for a few seconds. It's fine now? Okay. Thanks, Storm of Thunder. I'm trying to figure out some things right now. OBS has drop frames in network, but it looks like OBS pushing the CPU too much. Good now. Alright, I wonder if it was just playing that video. Oh, and I know what the crackling is now. Hi, Cloudhead. How you doing? Hi, Stuart. Hi, regulars. Thank you for coming. I don't have a name for you yet. We thought about suar tender, but I don't like the sound of it. But let me pull something up here. I wonder if I can just play matches. That'd be really sad if I couldn't. Let's see what happens. Hi, Dexter. Not regulars like regular people, but like, you know, they're homies. Oh, that definitely drops frames, doesn't it? Yeah, that's mega drop frames. Alright, so I guess that drops a lot of frames. That's too bad. That was just gonna play in the background. But yeah, I guess that throttles it. I'm really surprised by that. Oh well. This is the thanks Sleep GC. So I'm gonna start this then and not go with like video playing, which is totally fine. Let's go ahead and get the top 8 going. So I'm gonna record this. Alright, so let's go ahead. Do you have an NVIDIA InVec? Alright, we can't do troubleshooting right now, unfortunately, so we can can the VODs. I mean, the VOD is gonna play for like the first moment. That's not even the main part. Like, most of everything are images, so it's not a big deal. But thank you. If you're using a video graphics card, it can really easy up on the process requirements. Yeah, well, Thunder, we can talk later. For now, we'll get things going. Like I said, the meat of this is not playing PUBG, so we're gonna be okay. But yeah, we're okay. Love you though. Thank you. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. So let's pretend like this is starting for real now, because it is. I was just getting everybody situated, seeing how everybody's doing. But yeah, so boom. All right, so welcome. This is a little bit of a experiment and a project as well that I've been thinking about for a long time. First off, this is available on Twitch right now, and it's also going to be available later on YouTube. And if you're hearing it right now, then it means that you got the podcast version, which is available the next day on Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday being the 23rd. Right now it's the 22nd. This is the first episode ever of I Stand Corrected. The title's dropping like flies. You can kind of see where it's going. But it should be under an hour. We should be pretty good here. But the whole point of this is really to kind of give the buffer for results and, you know, what's going on in the Twitter sphere, as well as just like how the PGR is shaping up to be. The last thing we had this weekend was Genesis 5, and it's also the first thing we've had. So I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover top 8 in their bracket runs. And I'm going to cover like an overall summary of the tournament, followed by what the top 10 would look like if it leaked like this moment, like if I like accidentally alt tabbed and like you saw like the PGR right now, which is really just for like shizzles and giggles more so than like, oh my god, this is it, because it'll change. I mean, it changes all the time, we know that. But it'll kind of give everybody like a good sense of like, oh, that's how things work, because there's tons of misconceptions, there's tons of things that still are just very hard to address, and I get it and I respect it, and it makes sense because it's a busy world. So like, you know, people don't always pay attention to like what's going on Twitter. If you black out for 2 weeks on Smash Twitter, you could miss like all these things that happen. Okay, so when it comes to that, this is really just dedicated towards oh, and thanks Medros M2. I inserted the Toasty GIF. It's really fun. But yeah, so we're gonna get right into it. Like I said, this will be on YouTube in case you want to view it later. This is gonna be on SoundCloud, just the audio. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do about music because the recording right now, if you're listening, it probably won't have the music, or it might. I don't know. How dare... Oh, hey, Curly. Oh, my gosh, you're here. I love you so much. I am the Smash Killer, yeah. So there is a chat going on, so if you're listening to the podcast, I'm reacting to that. So I'm going to try to ignore chat until it's relevant. We'll have a Q&A at the end. Well, I'll take about, like, 3 questions, I think. But let's just get into the meat of it. Obviously, the PGR season just started. We had PAX South 2018 happen in Texas, and that was a big deal. Cells, I see you. Stop. PAX South 2017 was an invitational, so of course those results were in the off season, and it was an invitational. It didn't count. We had these crazy runs. We also had these big bomb outs, but people were working, people were testing, people were seeing. Thank you, Curly. So going into Genesis, obviously there's expectations because it's the first event of the season. We got all this build-up. Zero's gone. We're going to be talking about a lot about Zero being gone, but not at the same time. For what it counts, though, there were many drops from this tournament. There were drops that happened at the tournament, notably, you know who, the T word. And then there were 4 that happened like days before, if not a week prior, with Sam Sora being probably the earliest drop. So right here, what you see is the top 8 graphic made by our lovely graphic editor, Spike. And we had a pretty, I want to say, wild event that was tainted by a little bit of meta drama, but I'm not going to talk about the meta. I'm not going to talk about things that are pretty frivolous, like game counts, what characters people used. I'm going to give you names, and I'm going to give you scores for the stuff that we count. So you're going to get the set scores. You're going to get, you know, who they beat, who they lost to, and why it matters. Because at the end of the day, you go 3-2 last hit with somebody, or you go 3-0 triple 2 stock, it counts the same. You might disagree with that, but at the same time, like, there's not really a workaround around that. There's a lot of noise that's created by counting games, and it gets really crazy really quickly. So getting into this, we have MKLeo at first. He was, you know, ranked 4th this season, or last season. When I say PGR rank, I'm talking about like the most current one, okay? So before we freak out. Mistake at 2nd, ranked 13th. Salem at 3rd, ranked at 2nd. Nairo at 4th, ranked at 3rd. Debuzz at 6th. Sorry, Debuzz is at 5th, ranked at 6th. And then tied with MVD for 5th, but he's ranked 25. And Fallen got 7th with ESAM, ranked 41st and 21st respectively. And thank you, Domino, for the follow. I'll try to not acknowledge that too much. But for the podcast listeners, this might be loopy. So if it is, we'll know for next time. But for the Twitch chat, we're having fun. But obviously from what you see right here, we have a pretty funny spread of characters, but also 4 characters that have a pretty, well, two characters. We have doubles of them, 2 Bayos and Rosalinos, who are universally unpopular in our scene. Unfortunately, our top 8 was not even a millionth the hype of Melee, but again, we're not here to tear down scenes. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But talking about the numbers, this is what we got, okay? So I'm going to go over each of the top 8's bracket run, and then take some questions, and then give pretty much what the top 10 would look like. Before I do that, though, I do want to say that, we did have those drops, and that one drop that happened at the tournament with Tweak was unfortunate. But at the same time, to like point blame now, to blame whoever, I mean, lesson learned, check your brackets. He's a traveler. He travels to like 1 billion S tiers a week. So, of course, there might have been some like expectations there set on him by his team, his manager, maybe his friend, whoever, but it happened. And they gave a word, but they had an expectation that he would follow up or this or that. He said, she said, I don't care. What bites is that Tweak wasn't able to enter. We didn't see him. You didn't see him. He didn't get to see himself. And that really, really hurts, only because the first event of the season, Cloudhead, the first event of the season of this caliber is, and not having that in your repertoire, it's going to show at the end, especially because, as we've seen, this is an A tier event, which is the third highest tier, the second highest being A+, and of course the highest being S tier. But we raised the standards this season. It's a little bit harder to get where you want to go when it comes to tiers, because last season, taking into account the feedback that there's too many S tiers, whatever, what matters, what doesn't, you pretty much have to be at the scale of like Evo or Civil War now to hit S. Genesis was not that. We did have a little bit of under the PGR show up. Almost no Japanese. We did have the majority of the top 10. Things have been adjusted in the TTS, so even though Zero is like not here and he's number 1, ranks 2 through 11 take into account the bulk of the points, okay? Now, if he decides to enter because the Switch is getting announced tomorrow and the first inaugural tournament's going to be at Hyro Saga or at CEO or whatever, we'll adjust for that. But for now, let's work with everything as if nothing's going to change, which is never the case. So, obviously, since it's an A tier and probably the only tournament, at least from my understanding right now, that can topple it, or if not already has toppled it, is Frostbite, which is going to happen in less than a month in February up in Michigan or Detroit or whatever, the Midwest. It's like one state to me, I'm sorry. But 674 entrants here, and I know Frostbite's already broken 700. Frostbite does focus on the fact that there is more of like a, like the common crowd vibe and stuff, and they have a lot of events, whereas, Genesis is like, you go win, okay? So when we're looking at that, we do have to think of like, if you win here and you win there, you're going to be like pretty much untouchable. If you lose here and lose there, then you're pretty much a random. So let's start going over the top 8 in detail, starting with MK Leo, okay? So these graphics were inspired by Cards Against Humanity. So if you have something to say, you can say it because it's a one-man show, so I don't really mind. We can start animating and stuff, but, I mean, like, what else do you need? I can't do what Cud does. Like, he's a maniac. So if we look here, on the side, it's going to say Genesis 5 run, MK Leo. If you're listening on the podcast, let's go over what MK Leo did at this tournament. Thank you, Conrad, for following. But MK Leo beat, in order, Macau, Fraud, Super Sega, Black Twins 13, which is, of course, that Canadian Cloud. His first PGR win started with Conga at 30th, Lima 24th. I'm listing their rankings. Zenu 49th, The Buzz 6th, Salem 2nd, Mistake 13th. Okay? Now, when I'm talking about total PGR wins, in 6 months, okay, Conga might never win again, so the strength of that win does not hold in court at that point. But right now, just looking at for like a measure, okay, understanding, okay, who should we be winning against, who are we losing against, this is what MK Leo got. He got, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, he got 6 total PGR wins, and if there's a typo, expose me, it happens. MK Leo got 6 PGR wins at this tournament, and from my understanding, the strongest win he got was Mistake, who obviously got 2nd. Now, the PGR, what happens? How is it calculated? People think there's still placement points. People still think there's, peaks over placements, this, whatever, right? The thing is that who you outplace, as in last season, as well as who you beat, is what determines your score. As we've seen in the past with things like Civil War, where DeBuzz doesn't beat a top 10 player to get first at the most ridiculous scaled tournament of probably all-time Smash history, he still won. Okay, so he didn't beat those people, but he still outplaced them. So there's something to be said about that. Okay, so when we're looking at those things, obviously it's something you got to take with a grain of salt, because to me, after we started to look at these things, Durzoid, stop. After we started to look at these things, like 2 people getting 5th can mean entirely different things, as you'll see now. So MKLeo obviously got 1st. He's like the most powerful right now. A win on MKLeo is going to be worth a lot of money, okay? A loss to him is probably the best thing you can do if you're only losing to him. So that was his run, okay? 6 PGR wins with a low of Zenu, you know, from last season, and a high of Salem. So that's great that he beat Salem, okay? Moving into second, we had Mistake, okay? Now Mistake, probably the MVP of the tournament, only because of his run. If you look here, like, he beat a ton of people, okay? He got 9'd on stream by a Game & Watch, which is like catastrophic shambles. But just going through his bracket run really quick, he beat Kaido-kun, Minty, Chronicle. He beat Anti, ranked 20th. 8-Bit Man, Rob from Florida. Meister, which was making a lot of noise. Congo as well, ranked 30th. Javi, Wadi, ranked 12th. K9 at 48th. MKLeo, he lost to, so that's pretty good. Fallen, 41st. Dabuz, 6th. Nairo, 3rd. Salem, 2nd. So this is already ridiculous, if not the most ridiculous. And he lost to Leo. So he had 2... Meister was the loss. Oh, whoops. So he had 2 losses to Leo. And, wait, how could that be? Don't screw me up now. Meister was the Game & Watch, but he lost to Leo. Oh, he won against Leo too. Okay, my bad. So, correction, he won against Leo and lost against Leo. So he's 1-1. Obviously, Leo's 2-1 against him. But he lost to Meister. So, what happens... Yeah, I derped. I made this, like, in 5 minutes. So, roast me. So, Mistake lost against Meister, and he lost against Leo. Okay, so those are his 2 losses. A pretty, if you ask me, bad loss. And a pretty good win when it comes to Leo. Didn't he beat Leo? Oh my god. Well, I screwed up then. So he lost to Leo. But in any case, he got a ton of PGR wins. The strongest win between, you know, with Salem, obviously, that's really big. I accidentally copied Leo losing twice. So this is where the stream falls apart, but bear with me. Losing to Meister obviously drags him down a lot if Meister doesn't do anything all season, but obviously Meister accumulated a lot this season. And then not beating Leo, but losing to Leo is pretty good because he won the tournament. So, with that being said, Mistake looks really strong right now, and it makes sense since he got 2nd at the hardest event so far of the season and the only event. So, going into 3rd with Salem, in terms of PGR wins, he beat Ally, he beat MVD, MKLeo, he lost to Mistake, he lost to. So he got 2 PGR wins. His bracket was pretty, I don't want to say free, but, you know, it was something where he faced Freean, Beanzo, Caraflax, who starts becoming the first notable name, obviously SoCal Pit, Captain L, Canadian Pikachu, Poyo, Midwest, MDVA, I don't know where he is now, Kirby, and then Meister once again. So those names may not be the strongest of some, but Meister did do some damage by beating Mistake, so at least Salem took that in. Obviously, destroying Ally and MVD helps him a lot, and losing to MKLeo Mistake also helps him a lot because they were the top 2 of the tournament. So pretty much this is how it goes. Sorry I made a mistake on MKLeo. I mean, you know, it happens. I try to proofread these like really quickly, but I wanted to start on time. We're going, we're moving, we're continuing on to 4th place. So Nairo was one of the craziest runs as well, and a sad one too, only because if you look here, he only got 3 PGR wins, but his set across the entire tournament was pretty crazy. He beat Oh My God, which is, I think, what it's supposed to be said as, Spark, Poyo, Shadow PR. He lost to legit a NorCal Diddy Kong, which I'm sure you saw in the PGR V4 videos. NorCal Diddy Kong, he did it. Okay, he did it. Supergirl Kells he beat, Canadian Sonic, Brood, again, that duck hunt from Japan that last year, Upset Zero. Tamushika, Japanese Lucas. Meister, he also beat. So those are both of Meister's losses. And then he beat Zenyu, 49th, Esam 21st, MVD 25th. Losing to Mistake, again, is how you want to end because he got second, okay? So legit was legit. I think that Nairo's strongest win, ironically, in this tournament was that 2-minute speed run of Esam. And I say that because Esam trailed behind him, but Esam also beat Mr. R, which again, the power levels of the wins start to get that much more complicated when you look at that. If someone has a lot of good wins and you beat them in that same tournament, you kind of like, I don't know, if you saw Cell Saga for Dragon Ball Z, it's like getting Android 17, then 18, and then 16. You know, like it gets crazy. I'm not going to reference that too much, but like, you see what I mean? Like you absorb someone that's really powerful by taking their set, and then you kind of take everybody that they took as well. To a degree, diminishing returns. It's not that simple. Don't worry. Like, I'm just trying to oversimplify something. Agashama was the Lucas. Oh my God. There you go. I stand corrected. So Age Hasama was the Lucas. So Tamushika was somebody else. I'm also naming these off the top of my head, so please expose me. You piggyback off some of their wins. That's correct, Dexter. So I think his strongest win was Esam for Nairo. Obviously, that was a 2-minute flat set, 3 out of 5 on the national stage. It was Esam's first time making it at what would be classically known as an S tier last season, but it is an A tier. Tamushika's a duck hunt. There you go. So again, if you're listening at home and this is really complicated, I mean, we know that for next time. But as for this stream, we have this nice little graphic. There is going to be the VOD on YouTube, so you can follow along there. But we got time to move on to. So going into Dabuz, kind of heartbreaking for Dabuz. His only PGR win this entire tournament was Esam. He lost to MKLeo Mistake, which is a best case scenario, okay? Because MKLeo got first and Mistake got second. But his other wins weren't exactly the strongest. He beat Jet, Juice, Jameis Windu, Sharpizard, the Dominican Republic Charizard. Great to see him there. XX, NorCal Fox, obviously really popular. And Chag, the Mexican Bayonetta player that was making a lot of noise and continued to make noise considering how far he got. Norayo? Oh, whoops. Yeah. The typos, they will be many. But, it happens. I'll get better at it. This is really just like a pilot. This is the pilot. This is like free, not even pay-per-view. So, typos happen and typos stay. But, when we're looking at that, Dabuz only took a PGR set. So his strongest win kind of by default, considering that Esam was the only other person to get top 8 that he beat. Esam remains as Dabuz's strongest win currently, and they do go back and forth, so that may change. But at the same time, Dabuz ended in the tournament at 5th, and this is kind of what happens, And Dabuz tied with the next person, which is MVD, and MVD's bracket was a little loopy as well when it comes to, who did he beat to get, 5th at an A tier. Well, he beat Crownather, which I don't know who that is, Captain Flukin, Villain, Supergirl Kelso again, Canadian Sonic, C4. He did beat the NorCal Diddy. Now, why is that important? Legit beat Nairo, so there is at least some power exchange there, okay? In that differential, at least, you do get a little bit of that, his power becomes his, and then, from that, MVD grows a little bit more resilient when it comes to totaling down the numbers, okay? So, he did beat Legit, and he beat K9 Bruce, who had a really funny entrance by, I think, stabbing Diddy Kong on stage and then throwing Diddy Kong, but he plays Diddy Kong, so there was a lot going on at Genesis, to be honest with you. But, like I said, these PGR ranks are last season, the last 6 months. Again, K9 could win the next 7 tournaments, or he can lose the next 7 tournaments. 48th doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just a point of reference, okay? People of interest, okay? So, MVD beat K9, but then proceeded to lose to Salem and Nairo, who are, of course, looking very good in this tournament. So he lost to the top. That's great. The people who lost early, that's where it gets a little concerning, because unless they made a crazy run like Mistake, then it gets a little sad for their case. Okay, so total PGR wins, just 1. The strongest win from what I saw was legit because he did get that Nairo win, and he was just behind K9, so the placement differential isn't even that insane. But a win on Nairo is, okay? So legit getting that win, and then MVD taking that win creates for a little bit of a more contentious effort when it comes to rating his skill compared to everybody else, okay? So, hope everyone's enjoying. So far, this stream looks okay. If you're listening at home, I'll probably cut this a little bit to be a little bit more streamlined. If it makes absolutely no sense and you're lost, maybe you're a visual learner just like me. So I'll try to have these kind of released with the YouTube VOD. So again, no worries there. But moving on to the 2 7ths, we had Fallen, okay? So with Fallen, he surprised everybody in my opinion. He got pretty ranked low last season. I mean, he was sitting at the early 40s, 41st, I believe. I'm probably wrong. But Fallen came out swinging. So he beat Techno Zombie, 4 Eyes 95, Nelvin, a Connecticut Diddy, who I was surprised was there. BC, and his first PGR win starts with Wadi, who was sponsored by Alfred to attend Genesis 5 through his benevolence. But Wadi being, of course, a huge powerhouse last season, seeing Fallen take that was ridiculous. So he beat Wadi. Thank you, Dark Joe KB. He beat Wadi. He beat Zenyu. Of course, Zenyu on the lower end, but still a phenomenal player. Raito, Duckham from Japan, ranked 32nd. Lima, ranked 24th. Ally, ranked 14th. And he lost to Mistake. So he lost to Zenyu, which hurt him because Zenyu didn't make top 8. However, he did beat Mistake. He lost to Mistake. And by that, him getting second, that makes it so that, okay, for Fallen's case, he only lost to the second best player at that event, okay? Now, when I categorize their wins, of course, 4 PGR wins is what he took home. His strongest win, I thought, was Ally. Ally didn't make top 8, but neither did Lima, Raito, or Wadi. So, of course, Ally being the closest at that point counts for a good bit. Had he taken that Zenyu win, he would have looked a little better in winners, but he also might have not experienced those losses. So again, it always gets crazy, had Mistake not gotten 9'd on stream, he might have not been in losers and gotten those opportunities. So it gets really crazy. But again, we feel it's really fair to rate everybody based on how they lost to Zenyu, right? He lost to Zenyu, lost to Mistake. I'm pretty sure Fallen did. I'm pretty sure Fallen lost to Zenyu and Mistake. But in any case, if I said he beat him, I meant lost. But that's what happens. That's why this game is zany. That's why round robin is a little better when you have at least 5 people. You get more data, but when you get something like this with double elimination, you just switch lanes immediately and start facing all these crazy people. I mean, what are you going to do, right? So Fallen is one of the first 7th place ties, the second one being ESAM. Again, really great stuff for ESAM, but once more we look at how he did in his bracket. So he started with beating Moonboy Josh, Shock Smash, Sero 97, Arvark, that's a SoCal Villager, TLTC, SoCal Palutena. Strong competitors. Javi, of course, Mexican Cheat Cloud, very popular, Area 51 this season. But he lost to Buzz. Okay, fair, very fair. He did beat Mr. R, which was nice, but also Mr. R didn't do too hot. So you start to see now where 10th in the world kind of loses its luster pretty quickly. But then he lost to Nairo, so of course losing to Nairo is pretty good. If at least he's losing to the top half of, top 8. But his only PGR win was Mr. R, and by that his strongest, if anything, because Mr. R was really close to top 8. Or at least a little bit closer than Javi, if not tied. But again, Mr. R's wins go to ESAM, loosely again. They don't go a 1-to-1 ratio. It's just very relatively speaking. But of course, and by the way, chat, save your questions for the end because I can't kind of break the flow right now because I want to try to be fair to the podcast listeners. So that pretty much covers that. ESAM did really well, I feel, because who knows, maybe Javi gets these crazy wins later, so that win on Javi will grow in stock. Same with TLTC, same with Arvark. That's why you need to start visualizing. Look, all these wins right here that I just went over, they might turn into nothing later. If it turns out that Meister, it wins Frostbite, that's great for everybody that beat him at Genesis. However, if he loses, then his value starts to drop off. And that kind of makes sense, because if you take a 6-month ranking and at the beginning, the people that are all winning stay winning until the end, then that's a very good win. If they stay losing, then they start to drop off. So once again, that was MK Leo, Mistake, Salem, Nairo, Dabuz, MBD, Fallen, and ESAM as your top 8 for Genesis 5. I'm quickly going to jump into the summary because we're hitting about half an hour here, so we're good on time. Chat, thank you for staying tuned in terms of the summary. I alluded to it a little bit at the beginning, and you know, when we're looking at brackets, not only for double elimination hilarity, but drops, it gets a little concerning. And I don't want to start, I don't want to start suggesting that we shouldn't count this tournament or that this tournament should be taken with a grain of salt. Although some people might think that and might say that, and that's because people are awful, but also it's because people want to invalidate wins all the time as much as they can. So we had 5 PGR drops. Their seeds are next to their name. So Tweak, obviously, like, I mean, he got caught like in a bad sitch, a very bad snafu. He was the 6th seed. Void got the flu, patient 0. He was the 7th seed. Cosmos, same thing, 16th seed. Captain Zach, 13th seed, and Samsora, 14th seed. Okay, that is literally 5 of your top 16 seeds. And by the way, this is just ordered in like terms of PGR, so you know, freak out. But 5 of your top 16 seeds are not there. Now, what does that like mean? Well, it means a lot. It means that a lot of those pools had more or less randoms in winners finals, with no sort of like big fish in the pond to control. There was like no natural selection. There was no sorts of like, you know, king of the jungle roaming through and like killing all the gazelles. Like everybody just kind of got to do whatever. But then in other pools, you did have like, you know, a little bit of evolution going on, a little bit of natural selection, because the top seed was there and they were, you know, destroying everybody. So I don't know, you know, like you start to think of what if you get into trouble really quickly. But what is true is that 5 of the top 16 were gone. Not 5 of the bottom, you know, 200, not 10 of the bottom 50. 5 of the top 16. Not having Tweak, you know, who can at least go to toe with Leo, who can beat Salem, okay? Void not being there, who has beaten Ramen, who could beat, you know, someone like Leo, potentially. He hasn't done it too much in the past, but he could. Cosmos, who's a wild card. Of course, with Corrin, there's so many things that can or cannot happen for him, but he's done it against Salem. He's done it against, you know, players. Like, he definitely has proved it. No Captain Zach, so again, a really big wild card. Zach is either white hot or not. like Zach, you know, we know Zach. We love Zach. He comes in and he destroys, or you didn't hear about it. And, you know, that's kind of the nature of his play style. That's what he does. And of course, Samsora, who is like a just like monster of a player. None of them were there. So, you know, maybe it was hype because we got to see more people on stream. We got to see Mistake get 9'd by a Game & Watch on the national stage. But you do have to consider that this wasn't there. So, you know, what are you gonna say? We have to take the results as they come. They can't reseed because you start to get into the politics of reseeding, and all of a sudden, everybody who was preparing for their pool now doesn't have whoever it is that they were studying for. And you got to respect the masses. I mean, the tournament doesn't serve the top 16 seeds. It seeds all 657 players that attended, you know, and the few that dropped, obviously. So it's tough. Samsora canceled a week prior. Other cancellations before all of this mess include Nakat. I remember Nakat specifically. Chad, if you can help me out, I don't remember who else canceled beforehand. But I know that Nakat commented on Bear's status and said that he was not going. A few others did as well. But that's huge. I mean, that makes it very tricky. You know, more people cancel, more people not there. But for these people to cancel and their seeds were still there, I don't know. I mean, it's a little dastardly to think about, but that's what happened. The other big thing about Genesis 5, and this is where I'll kind of like go for a second, was the fact that it was the first event, but it also became an A+ tier down to an A tier. Oh, and that's true. Mr. E also did cancel. Thanks, Boone. So Mr. E canceled. Mr. E has done work against a lot of these players, so again, he's not there. But whatever. Mr. E could have gone 0-2. Mr. E could have gotten top 5. You don't know. But it was an A+ tier. Then, of course, it drops to an A tier. The reality of that is, in the labeling of tournaments, people care and people don't care at the same time. It's like Schrodinger's drama. Like, people, like, don't care about the label. They just want to go to the tournament. But then people care if, like, you make it A+ or A or, like, S+ or S, because we love labels and we love categorizing things. So, you know, it wasn't the best PR for the tournament to drop a tier, but we have to, like, honor that. Like, if these 5 players, like Tweak, Void, Cosmos, Captain Zek, and Samsora, are not there, then, by all means, the tournament is not as hard. So it became an A tier, which, again, is really hard to get to. It would have probably been a low S tier last season, but, you know, we conditioned accidentally people to think that in order, you know, to be like a PGR tournament, you're just like S tier by default, when in reality we didn't figure that like the top 10 or the top 15 would be under one roof so frequently. But then welcome to the Summer of Smash. So that's what we're standing at. I'm gonna go now into the top 10 if it leaked like this moment, if my desktop just freaked out and alt tabbed to the Google Sheet with everything on it. And you know, you might be surprised. You might be like, oh, that makes sense. This is both a lie and a truth at the same time. So you can take this and run with it and tell all your friends and be like, oh my god, I know the top 10 for the PGR. But until we say it in June, it's not true. So just keep that in mind. But without further ado, this is what we got. So if the PGR top 10 came out today, otherwise known as ITP T10COT, funny acronym, it would look a little bit like this, okay? And you can blast me in the chat because this is the entire point of it. But MKLeo at first is very obvious. Mistake at second is very obvious. Mistake had all the wins from this tournament to go by, and MKLeo got to absorb those slash beat him as well slash beat everybody else. MKLeo did not get there for free. Nairo at third, Salem at fourth, Fallen at fifth, and I put Fallen above Dabuz only because of his bracket. Dabuz had a little bit of a weaker bracket. I know that Fallen got seventh and Dabuz got fifth, but hey, this is why we're here. This is why we're talking. Dabuz at sixth turns into MBD at seventh, Esam at eighth, Ally at ninth, and Zenu at 10th. Why Ally and Zenu at 10th? Well, I was looking at their brackets. I looked at who they lost to. It seemed, in my opinion, the closest to those 9th and 10th spots, because again, I'm not looking so much for placement. I'm looking for the bracket and who they beat. So Ally and Zenu for me did pretty well. Zenu obviously beating somebody on the top 8 makes sense. Meister, you know, really close cut. He could be switched in for 10th, or he can be at 11th. I mean, this is very loose, okay? Loosely speaking, like this is like from, you know, this is me to you, okay? This is me being candid. I'm not trying to deceive or anything, but it's a good way to think about it. I would say right now, resolutely speaking, if MKLeo wins one more event, just one more, I would put him as the best in the world for free for the rest of the season, only because that deficit that everybody else would have to make up would be so great. It would be nearly impossible for anybody to catch up, which is what happened season and season again when it came to Zero. Because when Zero wins everything, it means that, yeah, you beat him, but like if you're not winning and he is, then he's still winning. That means he'll get first. So MKLeo takes Genesis. He took Genesis 4, so 2-time champion. If MKLeo takes Frostbite, I mean, barring any random iBuyPower Masters, Intel, Nvidia Cup, Splatoon Extravaganza by Nintendo, multi-tournament Switch release party, Nintendo World Championships being announced in the next 2 weeks, I think MKLeo has it. Like, he has it because what sucks is that Salem got 4th, and he had those losses that Leo doesn't. And if Salem's the contender for second, he's already working from behind because Mistake's already that much more impressive just from results in this tournament. And these results are going to weigh heavy. The only thing that keep Mistake probably behind anybody else if they start to catch up is that loss on Meister, assuming that Meister remains a total random in the eyes of the algorithm, which, to be frank, might be the case, okay? So, facts just stating right now, Anti is probably not even top 30. Actually, Anti is not top 30 at all. And why do I say that? He did terribly. And why do I say that specifically about him? He highlights a very common case that happens in tournaments that people start to forget about, and that's the losing to a random will hurt. We saw Leo lose with 65th at Evo, losing to Mute Ace and losing to False. Obviously, False is not a random, and Mute Ace is not a random per se. But they didn't do enough last season to be really powerful in the eyes of the numbers, so they hurt him. They dragged him. They're like anchors. They like shackle you and they pull you back. Mistake's case is Meister, but Anti lost to the Anti lost to a booth manager, so that is like very bad for business. It's you know, like, I bring him up, like, I love Anti, he does great, you know, he's amazing, but that highlights a very nasty case for him. He did lose later. I forgot to who. I did mention it here. Who beat him? Yeah, he lost to Mistake. So I guess he got the best of both worlds, or I guess the worst of one world and the best of another. He did lose to the booth manager, but he did lose to Mistake. So he lost a second and essentially he lost the number 2 in the tournament and essentially 2000th in the tournament, you know, if you want to be extreme. So Anti, by that metric, cannot make top 30 at the present moment. I think he placed like 49th. What up, Toasty in the cut. But that kind of, like, that's that on that. I mean, Anti is just a great example. It's also fun to pick on him because he's so high profile. But when you look at it, like, Anti has a big hurdle to come from, because anytime you get something, the fact that he lost to the booth manager will weigh in. Like, it'll weigh in, like, a ton. Everybody else seems pretty okay. MK Leo experienced not a single loss. Unlike the graphic I showed, which I botched, he did not lose to Mistake, so he stayed in winners. And I know that because I wrote the tagline for the graphic, so I'm an idiot. But MK Leo experienced no losses. So MK Leo is literally like a golden, he's like in prime position. If he wins Frostbite, he will be number 1. Again, barring Nintendo World Championships being announced like tomorrow with like a $30 million prize pool, which, you know, is going to happen. Mistake experienced a bad loss. Nairo experienced a bad loss with Legit. Salem did not experience any bad losses. Let me just go through their slides so I don't sound like an idiot. Nairo experienced that bad loss with Legit. DeBuzz experienced no bad losses, which is very DeBuzz of him. MBD experienced no bad losses. Fallen experienced a Zenu loss, which I wouldn't pin as bad, but it's not the best. But if you're going to have one, it might as well be him. Okay. Esam lost very fairly, DeBuzz and Nairo. And then that puts everybody else pretty nicely. Ally losses, I mean, you know, since you didn't get those crazy wins, same as Zenu, they're like kind of like the best of the worst right now. And I say that lovingly. I mean, like, still, this is top 10 right now. Why is Fallen number 5 on this list? Well, as I was describing earlier, Toasty, Fallen had an impressive set of wins compared to DeBuzz. His bracket run included Wadi, Raito, Lima, Ally. He only lost to Mistake. He did lose to Zenu, but compared to DeBuzz only had Esam. I mean, you could throw in Chag and Xax, and if you really want, you can throw in Sharpizard, but that ends up being more impressive. Yes, DeBuzz placed one above him, but, you know, we're not playing the placements game. So it kind of starts to screw with you, right? You're trying to, now you're like, whoa, what is real anymore? Am I real? Like, this is the existential crisis I was talking about. Because all season long, people go on Twitter and they swear they know what's going on when it comes to results. And they're like, oh, well, they got 4th, and they got 7th, and they got 6th, and they got, you know, whatever. Well, you can't get 6th. You got 5th tied, right? But as we saw with the YouTube video, when we finally got to show bracket runs in that very stylistic way done by Cud, you start to see what it means when someone gets 3rd, what it means when someone gets 5th, what it means when someone gets 17th, losing to 1st and 2nd in the tournament. So placements to me, they don't mean anything except for top 3. Aside from that, it's pretty whatever. It's superfluous to me. It's who you beat, who you outplay. So there you have it. There's your top 10. One more time for the listeners at home. That's MKLeo, Mistake, Nairo, Salem, Fallen, Dabuz, MBD, ESAM, Ally, and Zenu. This is, again, a lie and a truth at the same time because it's not official. But it's a good way to kind of look at things. So when it comes to anything else, I think that's it. I do want to take some Q&A from the viewers. I will pick with great discrimination whoever asks in the chat the question that I think is the best and least likely to shamble me on my own show. But yeah, pretty much that's the gist of I Stand Corrected. As people start typing up questions in the chat, and I'll look over in a second. Twice a month, you know, we don't got S tiers every week, so I don't think it's very necessary to have a show every week. On top of that, you know, like, I don't want to have a show every week. I think that's a lot. But that's where we are, okay? So looking over to the chat now, I'm going to take probably 3 to 5 questions, depending. If it's a yes or no question, that's kind of lame. So we have our first question, of course, from our biggest longtime supporter, Stuart98. He says, question, so Umabura Tat wouldn't normally be B tier, and it's just a B tier because it was pre-rated as such, right? So is it weighted as a high-ish C tier like it would normally be, or is it weighted as a minimum value B tier? Umabura Tat was the tournament that happened during the offseason as an exception. It's going to be weighted based on the fact that it's happening with this season's standards, so don't worry. It will be more or less that like B tier, C tier rating from this season that we got. If it hasn't been changed in the sheet, it's because, again, that's probably on the back burner right now as we're looking at EVO Japan, but that's what we have. Question, who has better hair, me or Stuart? Definitely Stuart. I love the bangs. Someone asks, Froganade says, is it a pure algorithm or no? Yes, it's all algorithm based. We do not do anything with the X factor. We don't mix them. We don't touch, you know, we don't cross beams. We don't do anything. It's just there. Okay. The only non-algorithmic part is the X factor, but that's subjective and separate. It doesn't affect their score. Chocolate Sushi asks, so E, Sam, and MVD get a boost from K9 and Mr. R beating Elegant. Not necessarily, because Elegant didn't do well this tournament. So we're not talking about last season. They were just there for sort of the reference factor, but it's not something that's like Elegant's not 11th right now, you know, like Elegant is whatever his performance of Genesis 5 granted him. What did you think of the viewership of Genesis 5? It was half of last year. Another question, the system doesn't actually apply penalty points for bad losses, does it? Technically, you could have a bad loss and win the tournament like Nairo at SmashCon. There's no like applying penalty points, it's just like they get rewarded or punished that much more or less. Obviously, Nairo lost to Rade at SmashCon, and Rade didn't do anything beyond that. So it hurt him, but at the same time, Nairo beat everybody else. So it kind of like, you know, it's just one bad thing. Everyone's allowed one sort of thing. Biddy asks, oh, what's up, Biddy? Tri-State Toon Link. Who do you think will make the biggest jump in the PGR V5? Man, one event. I mean, I guess I'm supposed to say Mistake, but at the same time, like, you know, like, I don't think Nairo's really moving. I think the buzz might be on his way out with the increase of, like, life taking over and a potential of no sponsor. MVD might make a good jump. He was looking in a good prime. Fallen is probably poised to make the biggest jump because he's 41st. So if he just does good again, he'll probably be in, like, the mid-20s, and that'll be, like, a 20-plus, you know, jump, which no one else can do. Someone else, temporary plan. Suar, will you release the X Factor for every eligible player? I'd love to see where people thought some players such as Pixel and T were. Oh, we never did that. That's right. I guess I'll release the X Factor list tomorrow. Or maybe next week. Or this week. I don't know. I'll probably release it when we're bored. I don't know why I didn't do that. Mostly because there's no importance in it. But, like, people love to see. So I'll reward that. You're supposed to say Fallen. Alright. So, another question. SN_SSB. Hi, SN. We used to play Wi-Fi. Would you agree that ESAM and Fallen's 7th may be better than MVD and Dabuzz's 5th? Absolutely. In the case of Fallen, he had a stronger result. Like, empirically speaking, he had a straggler. We saw it right there. I mean, just looking at Fallen, like, let's look. Okay, Fallen had 4 PGR wins. Dabuzz had 1. Again, PGR might not mean anything in 6 months for some of these people, but damn, like, his second best win after ESAM is Chag and Xax. I mean, let's not put any disrespect on any names here. I don't see either of them really making a splash, okay? But Fallen took Wadi, who's going to keep killing people. Zenyu, who's probably going to bop somebody in a clip. Raito, who's always a danger to society. Llama, who's a second danger to society. And Ally, who's like another danger to society. So, like, yeah, like, these wins for Fallen, they're going to go up and up and up. But for Dabuzz, I mean, you know, being nice, like, podcast can't see it, but I'm, like, doing the thing where you bob your head. Temporary plan. Thank you. I enjoyed seeing it last time in pixels from my region, so I'd like to see what people thought he was. Aww. That's cute, but you should never care what people think about you. I'm joking. Flaffy. I'm definitely taking more than 5 questions, but let's hit an hour, which is in 5 minutes. Or maybe like an hour 10 since we started like 10 minutes in. Predictions for how well the Bayos will do this season in comparison to each other. Salem Mistake, Zach Lima. Well, I think there's a clear cut between Salem Mistake and Zach and Lima. So they will rise into the top 10, and Zach and Lima will probably stay towards the mid-20s. But again, it's hard to say because Bayonetta plays by her own game, which is, you didn't hear that here. Frog Grenade. Great name. Who makes the algorithm and what coding language did they make it in? Just a nerdy comp sci question. You're going to have to ask Practical Tasks at Twitter on @thepracticaltask. I can tell you that it's based around the conventions and fundamentals of Ergovican standards, which does not mean anything to anybody, nor to me. But you can read more on that. Ergovican is kind of like where it stands on like the power level and expected win rates of people. So go ahead and bother him on Twitter. H2 asks, what's viewed more favorably from tournaments? Damn, sorry. Chat's flying by. What's more viewed favorably at tournaments? Whoops, it went, and I have no idea how to get it back. So if a player, Biddy asks again, so if a player isn't at Genesis and Frostbite, would you say it's a good chance they won't be on it? On the PGR, that is? I'm going to say, like, no. Like, unless, like, there's a Nintendo Championship $30 million championship event, like, it's hard to, like, work without Genesis and Frostbite. Those are, like, 2 midterms. Like, you cannot miss midterms and get an A in the class. Temporary Plan asks, also Suar, Pixel swore to us that he would make top 50 this year, and he beat a top 25 player at a major, so watch out. He already beat Mistake, Cosmos, Charlie, and Fallen, so he can definitely do it. I believe. That's great you believe. I'm not interested in believing. I'm joking. All right, here we go. Second chance, redemption. What's viewed more favorably from tournaments? Winning the tournament with a bad loss or getting second and only losing to the guy who won the tournament? I would say the former, which is the exact case for Leo and Mistake right now. I see what you're doing there. I say that only because Leo beating Mistake means that Leo was, for all intents and purposes, better than Mistake that event. And if Mistake beat, and this isn't Inui logic, but Mistake beat all those other players and Leo still beat him. So the relative power differentials there are still clearly in Leo's favor. So I would say, like, you cannot take away first from anybody. And even for Dabuzz at Civil War, like, everybody else had those, like, awful losses to a company. It's just that, like, the people that they lost to never really did much. So it's like, it kind of sucks for everybody but the winner. Tokaigi will count for the PGR, right? Of course. Tokaigi is an invitational event. However, it's styled with qualified spots woven in. So it is open to the public. You have a shot to get into it, although it might be a little hard. I mean, it's still public, so we honor that. All right, cool. We're rapid firing here. Let's see. I will take about 2 more questions, I think. I think we've reached like a good point. I hope that like if you're listening to this on the podcast, it was kind of easy to follow. I could imagine that with the bracketing, it got a little weird, but maybe the Q&A right now is making up for that. Temporary Plan says, Suar, how did you deal with people like Anti at DreamHack? He got 7th but lost to first place twice. That's an algorithm question, which I can't answer because I'm not the algorithm. I'm not code. Biddy said, what has been your favorite tournament run by a player? Definitely Nairo at SmashCon free. 2017. Yeah, and like Rick Solid says, so it's really hard, unless you're DeBuzz, it's really hard to get first at an event that's like stacked at these proportions, like an A or S tier, and not get some sick wins. Like, it's really hard. You know, and I would venture to guess that if the 5 players that canceled were there, MKLeo probably could have beaten half of them, because half of them would have run into him. So he probably would have had a win on Tweak with this, just saying, maybe, okay? Probably had a win on Samsora, okay, maybe. Most likely Samsora. More likely than Tweak. He would have likely had a win on Void. So, again, like, they weren't there, but MKLeo beat all these other people. So, like, it's of course very favorable, at least in this case. Suar, what matters more, a win on Salem at a C tier or a win on Elegant at an A tier? So Temporary Plan, if you were paying attention in class, last season does not matter anymore. This season, compared on as to how everybody does per tournament, those results matter a lot. So like Anti, 20th last season. He got 49th this season and lost to a booth artist. And I keep forgetting. Someone else who got top 8. So Anti is not clearly 20th right now. And if he continues to lose, whoever beat him, right, the booth artist, that win will not count very much. So those questions are in effect useless, and I'm trying to be nice here. But when people ask, like, what if A or B happens? Well, now you're thinking about, well, what's the seating at the event? What's the bracket at the event? Who canceled at the event? Because I guess we're going through the bubonic plague right now. And on top of that, like, who did they lose to? So I can't really answer that. Just beat whoever's the best and you'll be okay. And again, like, who is the best kind of changes tournament to tournament. So it's hard. Oh, I thought the previous PGR number mattered since they were listed in the video and the presentation. As I also said at the beginning of the lecture, which I understand if you weren't here, Storm of Thunder, I totally respect that. We're all walking in. We got things going on in our lives. But I just put the PGR here in the graphic, and if you watch the YouTube video like later, it's just like a point of reference. It's a person of interest. It's just a little like ID, okay? It's just like, hey, like they beat these players. Like we had our first tournament of the year, okay? So this is like the easiest way to be like, hey, listen, like this person matters, this person matters. Their entire runs are listed here, but they're just marked, kind of like, you know, how they mark fish when they go out to sea to look at their migration patterns. That's kind of what's going on. So you might get salmon that ends up in the Pacific or the Atlantic. Regardless of where they end up, they were marked and you know where they are. So this is kind of what's going on with the PGR. Oh, the PGR video? Okay, so, so yeah, I totally got that. So in the PGR video, we showed their V4 history with V3 wins having the emphasis because we wanted to validate what happened back then by showing that it happened. And whether or not that caused confusion is whatever, because everything always causes fusion regardless. But the algorithm takes into account at the end of the season simultaneously how did everybody do. So no worries on that. For the presentation, we just wanted to show they got a top 10 win. They got a top 20 win. They got this because, you know, like Fo's nowhere to be seen now, but he was 50th last season. So if you beat him, like we were highlighting that. So it was all just highlighting and, you know, it was all just like highlighting and celebrating. Okay. What's the homework for next class, Mr. Suar? I do not like the sound of that. It's really, really weird. I don't know. I'm going to be on in 2 weeks. So not next Monday, but the next. If this show receives positive reception, I'll get funded by TBS and we'll be good. If it's not, then another dream dies. Suar, who's your least favorite top player? Actually, wait, Stuart, is there much difference between a tournament that barely misses A tier and a tournament that barely makes it? Yeah? Like, barely was said twice, so come on. Suar, who's your favorite, who's your least favorite top player? Let me open the PGR and see. I don't know that I have a least favorite top player. I'm friends with everybody, which sounds so popular, but I'm friends with everybody. I don't immediately dislike anybody. I like semi-rag on Anti because he's so raggable. He doesn't like acknowledge the PGR at all until it places him higher than whatever like Smash Wiki places him at. So that's a thing. Darkshad's cool. Shootone. I mean, half of the PGR doesn't speak English, so you can't have problems with them. AC, Zenu. No, I don't have least. I'm not really a spectator. Like, I just events are funny. They're just fun. They're just fun. I like everybody. What do you think of Swarriors as a name for us? Sounds very Troy, and I'm not sure I'm into that. Will I be at Frostbite? Yes, I was funded on the compendium, and even though compendiums might be toxic to some people, it's currently the only framework by which we can fund events with actual production value beyond the basic like 18-foot beer pong table and 2 webcams. So, you know, kind of have to bite the L on that, but I'll be there for that. Temporary plan. I'm at like question 30 now. Also, Suar, if we are running an event and trying to figure out what tier we would be on the PGR, what do we do? Well, if you go on the PG Stats Twitter, there's a link to the TTS, and if you go to that, there's actually a PGR checker where you can enter in who's going if you got some people confirmed, and it'll tell you whether or not it qualifies. It won't tell you the tier, but I'm sure we can talk something out so you can get like a basic idea. But what I'll tell you is that unless you're sinking thousands of dollars, like tens of thousands, and serious sponsors, just do your thing, host your event, focus on your local regional community, and forget the TTS. Because I'll tell you right now, you don't want to be selling your house or mortgaging because you thought 800 people would come to an event when only 364 did. And you're also not going to throw like, you know, a goddamn Genesis or a big house. So just like, don't worry. Okay, just chill, do your thing. If you think it's going to be PGR, cool. If it doesn't, cool. We had some great seasons, or we had some great events during the off season that did fine without being ranked. So don't worry, okay? I'll tell you right now, nobody got PGR'd by winning CMB tiers, just like that. They had them incidentally because they were top players and they just farmed them like Esam or DeBuzz, but being C tier does not make the PGR, okay? So just don't worry. Congratulations on that, by the way. I'm looking very forward to your presence at Frostbite. So am I. Alright, I know about that. I was wondering about the specific tier, and yes, it will be on the PGR. I'm running an event with a fairly big company, probably C tier, max B tier. Cool. Oh yeah, and Choco. Okay, but okay. Like, Choco is an anomaly. Choco has a resume that would get anybody in America signed with a tier 1 team. Choco is a monster. Choco is 30 years old and living life and farming wins off the likes of Ken and Avadongo and everybody else in Japan. So like, you know, unless you're Choco, which you're not, we don't need to have that conversation. Do pod bonuses affect the PGR rank like it did last season? No, pod bonuses do nothing. Only the talent density. Okay? So, like, when it comes to that, like, if you got, like, the top 10 at your tournament, then you got the top 10 at your tournament. Whether or not there was $50 million on the line or $10, if you somehow convince the top 10 to fight over $10, then your event's going to be highly rated regardless, okay? And why we do that really stands on the fact that we found early on that like it's impossible to like measure a tournament's difficulty based on the money put on the line, because there were definitely tournaments that happened in random parts of the country that were like $10,000 pop bonus, and like the best player there was like, JJ Rockets. Which, no offense to JJ Rockets, but like, come on. But yeah, I will take one final question before signing off. Everyone's been really fun and enthusiastic. I thought nobody would show up. Somehow, like 50 people did, which is really reassuring. Smash content is not dead. I'm happy to bring this to you all. I think I Stand Corrected is a really funny, stupid series at all times. I had probably 3 or 4 typos in the presentation regardless. If you're at home listening on the podcast and you never saw those, so you're blessed. But I did make those typos. Hopefully I'll have more time next time. I will have more time next time because I literally thought about this idea eating breakfast this morning. I was wrestling with a name. I was like the suar hour, but then that's like the sour hour. And then like suar's bar, but I don't have a bar. And I was like, I don't want to use like the what, like the frame one. And I was like, I stand corrected because I'm always getting corrected by like the sea of Twitter and Reddit detectives that somehow have more of an acumen in this game than we do for our society's well-being. But anyways, last question. I'm going to peek randomly. Is tournament difficulty measured by numbers or amount of top-tier players? H2, final question of the night. Tournament difficulty has been time and time refined to be measured on the density of the top players there, meaning that when you're thinking about the overall makeup of the tournament, the more top tier, top sign, top players you have, the more we're able to rate the event based on that perceivable skill. Obviously, good players exist everywhere. We saw Booth Warrior destroy Anti, and we saw all these other people like Pelly from Europe as Sonic just destroy all these people. But we work by points of view and frames of reference. So if we can't like categorize somebody like Sharpie'Zard, who's like, I think big first recent event was Genesis, we can't really say much about him if he's just competing in Dominican Republic. Likewise, when our players like go over there, like if Rich Brown is getting top 3 at European events, which no offense to Rich Brown, but he's not getting top 3 at our events, right? Then it's really hard for us to be like, Europe's great. Also, Mr. R keeps winning there, and Mr. R doesn't keep winning here. So you kind of have to like measure things. And that was like the biggest controversy with Leo in the beginning. Mr. R went and got shambled, and people were like, wow, Mr. R learned the matchup. And he's like, no, seriously, guys, he's really mean. And then Vinny got shambled. Then all these other players got shambled, and the cat got shambled. And then MK was second in the season, and now he's 4th. So top player density is what matters for us for the best, most accurate results. If you put money, that tends to attract top players. However, not always. But if you get first in a 2,000 person tournament versus first in a 200 person tournament, and that first at a 2,000 person tournament had no top players at it, then what did you really do? You know what I mean? But if you got first and the entire like iteration of every PGR was there, PGRs 1 through 4, which is like 80 or 90 people, then you did a good job, even though you like placed first out of 200. So that's where we're at. That's what we're looking at. So podcast people, I hope this worked out. If it didn't, I have nothing to say other than my sincerest condolences. Stream people, I'm going to go ahead and sign out. It's been really cool. I'll be back in 2 weeks. If today's the 22nd, then the 5th. Wow. I'll be on at the 5th, which I think is the week of Frostbite. So that's where we are. I might do like a little bit of like a question bank next time so the chat's not so crazy, although I love the chat being crazy because it makes me feel reassured in my decisions at all points in this conversation. Yeah, DG Hurry. Don't worry, but there will be a VOD of this as well as a podcast so you can listen without watching. As for everybody else, Toasty, Stuart, Cloudhead, anybody else that's continuously here like Boone, and everybody else, thank you. Criticism, DM me. I had typos, whatever. Like, so does the New York Times. What are you going to do about it? It is shambolic, I'll tell you that. I did mess up Mistakes Run, but whatever. You were there for it. But yeah, take it easy. Everybody have fun. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. And retweet and share anything you see related to Smash, because we're going to need it in the coming months, whether it's an article, a stream, or a PR from like Oklahoma that's like in the style of Tetris. Like, it's all important, it all matters. I'm going to sign out. You'll have some like going away music, but for now, see you, thank you, thanks for all the support, and we'll catch you next time.